CKLU 96.7 FM. I'm your host, Bob Kerwin. Tonight we're looking at the top report, the Trends, Opportunities and Priorities report that was done by the Workforce Partnerships Board here in Sudbury. It's done by the Sudbury Manitoulin Workforce Partnerships Board. And the report I'm looking at is the March 2009 report, where there were a number of people that came together and took part in a survey, took part in a conference, and identified areas of concern. Especially with the people who are entering the workforce. And the top three areas of concern that they came up with were lack of essential skills, skilled trade shortages, and workforce shortages. Now, when you're going to be taking a look at workforce shortages, it's interesting to look at the demographics. It's interesting to look at basically three age groups. So let's take a look at the people who are over the age of 50. So I think if you take a look at people who are over the age of 50, between 50 and 65 or 66, you're talking about baby boomers. And what the top report says, the top report describes baby boomers, and I think it's worth reading. It's rather interesting. Baby boomers were born between 1945 and 1960. They grew up watching the Ed Sullivan Show. The baby boom generation has dominated the economy, our lifestyles, and leadership styles. Leadership for them has been characterized by workaholic tendencies and materialism. Baby boomers have had a minimum number of careers, are impressed by authority, are optimistic, and are driven to achieve. Generation X are the people born between 1960 and 1980. So really these are people between the age of 30 and 50. They grew up watching The Simpsons. They question authority. They can't wait. They seek bigger meaning in life and work, and are technologically savvy. They are skeptical and open to multiple careers. They consider challenge and variety as being more important than job security, and constantly aim to achieve a work-life balance. Now, this Generation X is a pretty important generation, between the age of 30 and 50. I mean, these are the people who are pretty well leading the way in most businesses today. They are the people who are poised to take over when the baby boomers retire. Then we look at Generation Y. The Generation Y basically is anyone under the age of 30. I like to look at Generation Y between the age of 14 or 15 and 30. I like to look at the people when they get into secondary school, because at that point they're starting to take a look at education and career development seriously. So Generation Y is the newest entry into the workforce, and they bring contrast and a challenge to the workplace status quo. This generation is unique in a number of ways. They refuse to blindly conform to traditional standards. They just refuse. If something is traditional, just because it's always been done, that's not necessarily the way they want to do it. What also makes their situation unique is that unlike previous generations of workers, they are a scarce resource. And as such, they're in demand in the workplace. They cause and they sometimes force changes in employers' attitudes to attract and retain skilled staff. Now, interestingly enough, when you take a look at some of the traditions that we have had in our society, generally people who are over the age of 50 are starting to think about retirement. And people who are between 30 and 50 are starting to move their way up and take leadership roles that were generally held by older people who were in positions and are now retiring. So Generation X is being trained and groomed to take on leadership roles. But Generation X is also prone to multi-careers. Generation X is switching careers all the time. And so very few of the people in Generation X are really in a position or with a company long enough to become a leader in that company. They would rather change careers rather than wait for an opportunity to become a leader and to move up the ladder. One of the things that I think is going to prevent us from experiencing the kind of workforce shortages that the experts are predicting is the fact that baby boomers, when they reach 50, 60, and sometimes even 70 years of age, are taking a look at the situation that Generation Y is in. And many of the baby boomers, they didn't want to conform to traditional standards. They didn't want to blend in and just toe the company line, but that was part of their culture. They basically did conform and they did toe the line because that's what was expected of them. Now, many of the people of the baby boom generation, they may have been working through a career of 20, 30 years, 40 years with a company. Now they're taking a look at the younger generation and they're saying, wow, would I ever like to have lived and be starting out now with all of the experience and all of the knowledge that I have? And then what they're finding is they can't. That there's no reason why a 60-year-old can't start a career, a new career with another company at the age of 60. They can retire from their first career, take 1 or 2 years to get the training needed to get into another career, and even at the age of 60, they know they've got another 10 or 15 years of good, solid work life ahead of them. If they can maintain their health, there's no reason why they can't be working till they're 70 or 80 years of age. And in today's generation, today's society, in 20 years, you could have 3 different careers. As a matter of fact, most of the young people realize that when they get into a career today, they're looking at, a 25-year-old may be looking at 10 or 12 different careers or job changes before they get anywhere near to retirement age. So a 60-year-old could be saying, I'm going to get into a new career because the lifespan of most careers today is 7 years. I'll only be 67 by the time I've worked my way through that career. If I don't like the one I'm in at the age of 60, I can get into another one at the age of 65 or 66. I can do what the Generation Y is doing, and I can have that kind of exciting life ahead of me. The other thing that companies are finding, and to the dismay, I guess, of Generation X, those who are between the age of 30 and 50, is a lot of the baby boomers, instead of retiring, fully retiring, what they're doing is they're just reducing the amount of time that they're working. So they're finding an opportunity to cut back to 50% or 25% of the job they were doing before and come back in on a contract basis to do some of the work that they were doing in the past, but they don't have to be there all the time. Employers are creating an awful lot of flexibility in the workplace. And the baby boomers love the fact that you can have this flexibility. You can work from home, or you can come in and work different hours. You can work in the evening. The employers are having to change their attitudes toward Generation Y, because Generation Y wants all of these innovations and initiatives. They want a flexible schedule. The baby boomers want flexible schedules too. And now they can actually have them. The employers have changed their whole culture. So I think what you're going to find is you're going to start seeing the baby boomers spending longer at work or getting into different careers, and that's going to ease the workplace shortage that many experts are predicting.